Agenda work session, March 12th, 2015. We are setting the agenda for the March 26th, 2015 regular council meeting. Janet, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mayor Lambert.
Here.
Councilmember Abbott.
Here.
Councilmember Cagle.
Here.
Councilmember Manning.
Here.
Councilmember Stoll.
Here.
City Manager Hyatt.
Here.
City Attorney Miller.
Here.
As you will see under the number 8, old business on this agenda, item A is discussion of facade grant program. You have some information in your packets that pertains to this. I believe Mr. Jablonski went over this a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Just hit the highlights of it, but there is additional information now in the packet on this. Potentially will be on for potentially for first reading.
Thanks, Mayor, members of the council. We proposed the initial outline for a facade grant, guidelines for a facade grant program at the meeting 2 weeks ago, and we discussed, I think the big picture is, the program will be applicable to East Ridge business owners citywide. It's a dollar for dollar match, so it's 50-50, up to $20,000. The city will pay up to $10,000 towards a $20,000 project. The city will reimburse after a contract is signed and the regulations have been established by the city council. The city would reimburse persons for facade improvements that include windows, signage, parking and landscaping, and several other major features that we want to see, and the kinds of things that the city council would like to promote in trying to create more curb appeal in the city. So it's, I think it's a good time to talk about it, because I've got a lot of phone calls this week. About half a dozen phone calls about the program, interestingly enough. So, anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer now or wait.
Have any questions? And of course, there will be plenty of opportunity next week to ask questions and comments as well, or next week, I should say.
We're going to have the sign ordinance meeting next week.
It will be on Thursday at 5:30.
Okay, I'll just stay with some of this. The sign might change next Thursday, or might get less strenuous or more strenuous. Or they could go with these.
Potentially, there could be some things that get changed with the sign ordinance that could impact this. We will have that. Well, they could, depends on how much work they have to do total. They could do part of what they want to do on the exterior now. They've got some work that needs to be finished up, new lighting or new signage or whatever that they can.
Let me ask you this question. Just really kind of,
It's got to be for the property owner will have to essentially be on the hook because a tenant who just has a lease could be in and out and
maybe check cash will apply for that old building.
potentially.
Well, I think one thing with Brenda, they had their own building for so long, they could just like buy it tomorrow and then 6 weeks from now, come get this program, they wouldn't qualify.
And that's absolutely right. I would add to that, again, this is pending the council's approval and advice on this, but, there was a focus on improved design or improving the look on Ringgold Road, so that while there is a subjective element to that, there was also some reference to, colors, a certain type of colors, which are, more natural colors, and it tends to look better, it tends to blend better, with surrounding businesses, and surrounding characters so that, you know, it might be better if there might be able to think of an example where there could be an improvement there. And, you know, again, we just need to be able to pass those guidelines and specifications.
Yeah, I know we talked about this in the past, but, people were complaining about the, certain businesses that had some kind of wild colors, but then you go to some of the restaurants, they're basically got the wild colors too, so you can't really, you know, that's a problem there, you know, too.
That's what we introduced a couple of weeks ago, I guess a couple of weeks ago, design standards that would flow throughout the city. People would be grandfathered, so you wouldn't see an opportunity for them to, but if they did start making changes, then they'd have to conform.
And I think, you know, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, that certainly there has been recently an emphasis on new development, businesses that are coming in that we feel are going to make a big impact here. But this program really caters to those folks who have been here for a long time and help to build East Ridge economically and otherwise. And so it's really an opportunity for them to remain competitive, but to also experience, I think, some gratitude from the city.
Where y'all going to put in some language, something, or 10 years, or something like that?
Yeah, it's a 5-year grant, every year.
Get back as far as we-
Yeah, what was it that, it was 5 years, they owned the property for 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years.
Be current on their taxes, be, all the things that comply with the state.
All right, we have no questions or comments. We'll move on to item B. Discussion of an ordinance limiting clusters of payday loan, title on, and cash advance businesses.
Yes, Mayor, we had talked about this, I introduced this a couple, I guess the last meeting or the prior meeting. I'm going to get with the city attorney to get an ordinance drafted up before the next meeting, but we need to look at this. I think especially for East Ridge, it's not so much that we're going to try to eliminate checking to cash and cash advance businesses. We can, obviously they're regulated by the state, but we can limit the area where they are located, the space between the blocks, the footage, however we want to address this is something that I think we need to go ahead and look at. We don't want these businesses on every corner, but we like it if they're going to be here, not let them all be in a 2-block area. And right now we kind of are okay, but I think we've got the potential to not be that way very soon when we start coming in. So I think it's something the council needs to look at and address soon. The city attorney has.
And the council needs to understand that what we're talking about is the prospective application, is we can't go back and force somebody to close down that's been already operational in existence before the ordinance was passed. But what it does is provides for, in the future, to avoid what they call clustering, these type businesses, clustering as opposed to the closeness and proximity of the residential areas and to each other.
Do we have any comments or questions? Okay, we will move on to new business items. And item A is discussion of organizational charts. Okay.
Yes, sir, I asked that to put on here. Since our last meeting, when I questioned about the personnel changes and looking from one department to the other department and about where the departments were being, how they were being paid and things. Well, I went back through the budget thing that was given out right here. The book, and I went back through this thing, and I found the organizational chart that was handed down in July of 2014 to go by the budget. Okay, and so then I got over here to the salary department, going to it. And I have went down through here and I have placed each one of these things according to the way I thought they were, and I was gonna ask this tonight. And just like this one right here, it starts out with this finance department, administration and finance, it goes city manager. Okay, and over here in the budget, proposed salaries and hourly pays, city manager is listed in this. Then it comes down to city treasurer, which is listed in this. Then it comes down to the payroll personnel, I'm assuming that is Ms. Perry, which is listed in here by the hour. Account specialist, I'm assuming that is Ms. Quarles. Okay, she is listed in here by the hour. IT coordinator, he is listed in here by the hour. Do we have an IT coordinator?
We do not, he had resigned, and we had made an update to that organizational chart with the cashier.
Okay. Then, went on to administrative assistant. And I could find an administrative assistant here for the hourly pay. Then I come over here to the city recorder. There is no pay scale in here for city recorder in this budget. Then I went back through this thing, and I found where you've got the city recorder / administrative assistant being paid out of recreation at a different rate of pay. So then I come down here to accounts payable and accounts receivable, and they're all in here. Then in August, you brought up to the council, August, to have these change to these. Okay? So now we no longer have the IT coordinator, and we no longer have an administrative assistant, because now I'm assuming y'all are calling that a community involvement coordinator. Okay, now who is that?
That's Amanda Miller.
That's Amanda Miller. Okay. So she is being paid out of administration and works for the police department.
She's got a dual capacity, yes, sir.
Dual capacity, so
She's
she's,
still working the community involvement, and we're trying to do some cross-training for some employees because we potentially have some people that are going to retire. We're trying to backfill to learn a job before we have to have the job filled.
okay. So then, this new chart still comes down to accounts receivable. Who is that now?
Person filling that position is Marilyn Tilley.
But she's over here.
She's recently been transferred over there, yes, sir.
Okay. Now who is accounts payable?
I'm sorry, that's
That's
wrong.
Maryland.
That was Maryland. Accounts payable was Maryland. Accounts receivable has been, Diane has taken on that responsibility.
So Diane has got the account specialist and account receivable.
It's just been combined with account specialist.
Okay. And then we've got the cashier clerk, which you're saying is making the same amount of money as the IT coordinator?
I believe that's, I don't know what that
But
is.
anyway, that's where her pay.
Somewhere right around there, yes.
All right. And here we've got city recorder again. And this one,
Just showing on the organizational chart, doesn't mean we have two of them.
okay.
Because before I got here, the city recorder was moved to the Parks Department, which I've never been to a city that had a city recorder that worked in the Parks Department. They always worked at City Hall because there was some level of
Well,
responsibility.
I
And we moved her.
got moved down to the parks, and I understand all that. Okay. Then, you said that, you reappointed Melvin to city service director.
No, sir.
What was that you made a statement up here a couple of weeks ago?
He's the interim superintendent. We don't have a director in that department.
Okay.
I was acting as the director because we did not fill that position when we came to this new budget after retirement. I was acting as that in order to streamline some of the other processes we're doing with economic development and the board of region legislation that's taken up a lot of our time, obviously, especially recently. I put Melvin in that position to kind of oversee that area.
Okay, so then you've got an administrative assistant in here, which this department no longer.
Correct.
Right, no longer in cities. Okay, then, the people you had listed down in here, street supervisor, traffic, building maintenance, and sanitation, I found 2 of them being paid out of street aid fund.
I believe that's correct. I believe one of them's out of street
I
supervisor.
found 2, so that's.
Could be the assistant
Traffic
supervisor.
division and the,
That is correct. Our plan is to move those out of there in the next budget cycle.
Move them out.
To move them out from being paid out of the street aid, yes, put them in the general fund.
I understand they always have them.
Correct, they have, but that's an option the cities do have.
So are you planning on making Melvin create this department again in next budget?
The department exists, sir, we haven't done away with the department. It's always been there, the city services department's always been there. I didn't do away with the department, I did away with the director's position.
Well, in this salary supplemental fund where you're showing your thing, there is no department. And also in this thing here listing, salaries of everybody, there is no city service department.
But
And also, here in your financial fund where you have budgeted all departments, you have got them listed, but you have zeroed out through here, where we're not financing them. So,
correct, Melvin's being paid out of the sanitation department. We took all the zeros out because we took the staff out. We didn't replace the staff, so there's no need to budget anything in there. But for budget purposes, because you do auditing and from year to year, we left that in there and we zeroed it out. So next year it won't even show up. But that going in that first year, we needed to zero it out for purposes of bookkeeping and for audit purposes.
so this Department of City Services would not be even in here next
That's
year.
that not part of, no, sir, you're saying that wrong. The administrative part of it, the director, was for the director and the administrative assistant. That will not be in there. But city services exist, that's the sanitation, that has not gone away. It's just divisions under the city services department. But what we took out, correct me if I'm wrong, Ted, we took out the director and all the supplies and the FICA and all the taxes out of city services because there's only 2 people in there at the time and we absorbed them into other areas.
And over here, on the budget assumptions, where you all went down through there and telling them how the budget was bigger and everything, says here deletion of 2 positions. City Service Director and Office Manager.
Correct.
Okay. So my question is, they're gonna be put back into it next?
No, sir,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay.
I'm going to request a superintendent's position, they're going to be in the, and we'll come up, we're going to talk about a budget count, and that's coming up during the budget cycle, we'll discuss this at length. Because for the sake of time, we probably don't have enough time to go over every position, we'll be able to do that at that point, but we're going to put a superintendent in there because somebody needs to be the go-to person in that department for outside contacts instead of the city manager.
And I'm not gonna go into every department that I went through, but some of the departments, when I went through this thing where y'all listed full-time employee, part-time employees and
Right.
stuff, it doesn't match on the tape line over here, so we might need to consider looking at that.
Absolutely, we'll take a look at that and see what we got, absolutely.
Pay scale on, because some people that are doing the same identical jobs, I've noticed in this thing being paid $3 and $4 an hour less than others.
Yes, sir, I inherited this, I've been here
I-
a year and 5 months.
I agree.
You give me time.
I've been here 3 months and I've noticed.
Well, you were here 30 years before that, but you give me time, and I'll be more than happy to get this straightened out, get you a pay scale, and a pay plan that we can live with, and that everybody can be within that pay plan, that it will be a very consistent pay plan. I have that in my computer now to be able to present it during the budget cycle, to right these wrongs that were done over the years. And we gonna have a lot of time to go in at length about how the process was done around here for handing out raises and doing, that's some of the parts of shooting. East Ridge has been shooting themselves in the foot by acting that way.
Yeah.
And that's why you see a lot of those discrepancies.
Right.
Not this city manager. I'm not casting dispersions on any other city manager. I've inherited, and we are well aware of what you're discussing. Absolutely. Thad and I have talked about this at length.
I have to live with these problems.
8 months, 10 months he's been here, we hear it every day.
I'm over here to pay, I'll pull it out here.
While he's looking, I was asking this question, when he's talking about taking the 2 supervisors out of the street aid. What's
Just,
Does that just give you more money for working on the?
yes, and that way you don't have to put more in general fund. It's apples and oranges. Really, I'm sorry, apples and apples. You just put, take it over here and put it here. You just have more money in street aid to do more paving. You're taking away from your paving by doing that. You would have to supplement it with something else if you.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, and that was, I always wondered why they did that, because it does take away from, you know, work release, that the state's giving us the money to do.
The state allows cities to do it. I do not think it's a good business practice to do that because then, as we all know, we've got emails in the last 2 weeks, fix my road, do this. Okay, well, I can't because I'm paying salary for that. So how do I tell the employee, how the citizens, well, I can't because previous councils and previous administrations have taken that money that you need to fix potholes to pay people and to pay benefits when we actually do have enough money to put it in the general fund and pay it. And Thad and I have already discussed that and I'm also going to present that to you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hyde, but we can use the state street aid fund for not only the salaries, but to buy equipment, to repair the roads with, like a paving machine or striping machine, or trucks or whatever like that. I mean, we don't have to use it specifically for paving.
That is
We could have our own bus system, and that could be paid for out of state street aid.
Anything related to that, to streets, yes, sir. And one thing we've done with the sanitation fund this year, Thad and I were talking about it today, coming into this budget, you had $7,000 in that fund. As of today, as of February 28th, you had $177,000 because of the way we've changed that document. We actually created a fund, it's not longer going into the general fund. Now we can take that, like the street aid, and pay for anything related to sanitation, it's just designated for sanitation. So those are things that are evolving. It's a process, Mr. Capewood. It's not something that you just snap a finger and get up here 4 or 5 months and it's fixed. And I've been working on this for 15 months, and Mr. Bethune sitting back there, he was part of this council when I came here, and there was a lot of issues, a lot of things that I had to address. And what's the first one you do? Well, it's not to fix everybody's pay, because you can't just go and raise all the pay. You try to get all the other issues corrected. You try to streamline staff. You try to cross-train. You try to, and by cross-train, you have to move people in other places. You have to get back up. You have to do things of that nature. Sometimes you got to make pretty tough decisions. And part of it is dealing with personnel. That's probably the toughest part of the job. But it's a joy. It's a great place, and I think staff is doing a great job. And I appreciate you bringing those to the forefront so we can address them.
Property, on the school property, that money will go on, you know,
It has, that's where it's been put at this point, and this council can decide where that needs to go. Since we sold the property, probably where it needs to, in my recommendation, that might be different, in case we need to buy more property. That way property goes for property. And I think that is exactly, and I haven't talked to anybody about that because we just got the money 2 days ago.
Right.
It's a business practice when you sell a capital asset to put that back in your capital fund. It's something, it's a best practice. It's not the only way, like a lot of things that Councilman Cagle mentioned. There's more than one way to do it.
And that's not on the budget, but I think it should probably be on the next council meeting, to discuss transferring that over to the capital improvement fund.
I agree. And if you don't deal with it in a way similar to that, can really cause numbers to be skewed a little bit.
That's true.
If suddenly you show a $600,000 jump in what you brought in revenue, if you don't account for that in some way, sometimes we lose sight of the fact that's a one-time thing. That's not going to be $600,000 that comes in every year.
it'd be nice if it would.
It would. It sure would. All right, we kind of segued. Was there any?
No.
Okay. All right, we kind of segued what we're talking about now into the last item, which is discussion of budget calendar.
Well, it is the season, obviously, and we did, it was a good segue. We got, Thad's going to talk a little bit about what we're planning to do. We've already, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, I'll let you talk about what you've already been working with staff about, and we've already got a jump on what we're doing, so go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hyatt, and Mayor, members of the council. We've been working with department heads, and we've got a process in place this year so that, as opposed to one or two people putting the budget together, we wanted to include the department heads so that they could include supervisors. And from the ground up, we could have a quality budget to make sure that needs were addressed, or at least presented to this council, so the council could set those priorities for the coming fiscal year and then in the 3-year capital improvement plan. So we've solicited responses from staff for capital projects that they'd like to request and include the plan, and I'm currently working those documents up now. Likewise, for the operating budget, we're going to send out worksheets here in the next week so that we can get responses from staff in terms of what they would like to request for the next fiscal year. What we'd like to do at the meeting in 2 weeks is I'd like to present a budget calendar to the city council so that we can put together some dates for budget workshops and then plans. Again, plans can always change, but budget work sessions for the council and the public to review and discuss the budget, an opportunity for staff to get the guidance of the council and come back with more figures or changes when necessary. And then, of course, the first and second reading of the budget ordinance, probably the most important thing that this council does in any given year. Right? So that's about it. Just want to make sure that that process is a little more organized this year. I landed here last year on April 7th, and right at the beginning of that, what would be the beginning of that process. It showed it a little different. So.
Well, excellent. We've got just a few minutes before our regular meeting to begin. Did want to mention the city manager's passed a note. I think we mentioned it earlier, but just want to mention again, we will have a workshop next Thursday night at 5:30 in regard to the sign ordinance, and that will be in this room. Mr. Manning, do you have anything? Mr. Sewell? Nothing this time. Mr. Cable?
Oh, yes, sir. I'd like to thank my wife Donna for putting up with me for all these years. As of today, folks, we've been married 49 years.
I'd like to say,
Our prior will you done?
Congratulations.
Over the weekend, I got an email, and I forwarded it on to Mr. Hyde here about Asher Lane. And I drove right by that thing. Folks, that don't need to be repaid. That needs a major overhaul. So I would like to suggest that we get Melvin or somebody and see what we can do, when we can do it. Because I'm sure this plaintiff, Ms. Stephanie Mathis, would appreciate it.
I saw where the city manager had responded to her, and I got the same email I imagine you got, and I had responded to her personally and just said, but of course we've got to go through the process, but I have been down Astor Lane, and yes, it needs some major work.
We'll get like that, it's just one thing.
It's rough, it really is.
I'm assuming that everyone else got the same thing about Clemens Road, about the guy requesting speed humps.
Yes.
I'd like to inform y'all what I think. I'm on personal opinion. I told him to write up him himself a little petition, take it around his neighborhood. He's got maybe 20 residents in the neighborhood. See if he can get over 50% of them to sign it and bring it to us. Then we could discuss the liability issues on it, because it's been brought to the city council once before. And the liability issues we brought up on it about it, public safety equipment.
Well, that's a very good point, as far as the petition and having some tangible sign that other people on the street are concerned about the same thing, because obviously we don't want to make a decision based on what one person wants on their street. So, yeah, that's a good thing.
Got another thing here. John Ross Road, I had a complaint called to me about it, and that's the gas company out there doing their underground thing. And I thought they were supposed to repair the road with concrete back up to the level. They've been doing it with asphalt since the bad weather's come in here. Chunks of asphalt have come out here, just sitting here this deep. And so we either need to do something or call the gas company, get them to
Councilman, if I may,
Absolutely.
the streets and codes department have been working on that and following the procedure that was set out by ordinance. That's something I got a call on as well. And Ms. Pope, she's not here, but she called and we're working on that.
All right, I have one more thing. I'd like to get an update on the resolution 2461, which was, the thing that was took to the Tennessee General Assembly for our support on our board of regions. I'd like to see what come of that.
I was fixing to, whenever the mayor got to me, I was gonna call an executive session, so we could go discuss it. I've already talked to the mayor and to the city manager and told them, advised them of that.
I'm pretty.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Mr. Graham?
Other than if we wanna go now or after. It'll only should take about 5-10 minutes.
It's
What you
up
want.
to you all. Okay. We will close this meeting, take about 5 minutes, and we'll be on the clock. And we will come back and start a regular council